Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm not seasick, and I did eat grass as a child, and no, I've never been green.
And this week, we dance through life with the 2024 movie adaptation of Wicked. Before you have to stop the podcast halfway through its 3-hour runtime to piss, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, or following us on Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla?
Aaron?
Have we accidentally turned into a musical theater podcast?
Yeah, and I think that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, good. Just as long as we're all on the same page.
I do think it's troubling in the sense that it is the opposite of our dreams of right-wing grifting for money.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think we'll get there anyway. We'll pivot. We'll pivot.
Well, 2025, that's the year.
Yeah.
Watch us for the Mortified Season 6 rebrand that makes you all never listen to us again.
Yeah, Joe Rogan of the left, here we come.
Yeah, here we go. But yeah, you know, this is something that, like, you know, let's be real. When was the first time you saw Wicked or listened to Wicked?
Oh, I don't know. I think I found out about it in 2007 or thereabouts.
Right.
And then I listened to it a bunch, and then I did get to see it when it toured. I don't remember the context in which I saw it when it toured. And, I mean, I'm an overachieving kind of... at the time, I was a little outcast. So you can imagine this did imprint on me in a very big way. So
Sure.
What about you?
Yeah, also around 2007 for me, you know, that's probably when it started filtering down to, like, you know, grade school, junior high school kids. And, you know, I didn't really, like, engage with it until it went and toured in 2011. And that was the first year I had started dating my wife-to-be. And we saw it together. And, like, that performance at our hometown in 2011 has, like, stuck with me as, like, one of the... actually, probably still the best performance that I've seen, like, in my life. It was just so good, and the music was so good, and you know that has a very special place in my heart. You know, both because it was such a great performance, and because it, like, you know, is one of my early fond memories of me taking Sierra to a musical. So it's probably not. It's probably very common to hear, like, oh, Wicked has a special place in my heart, among theater kids. But, it does, it does have an emotional, I have emotional memories connected to it. So, when I heard that they were, making this into a movie, and not only were they making it into a movie, but they were splitting the acts in half, so it has two movies, my immediate fear was, my immediate overriding feeling was dread. Because I was like, I don't know that I trust anybody to do good, especially coming off of the 2019 Cats.
Coming off of 2019 Cats and coming off of 2021, 2 In the Heights. I hated that In the Heights adaptation a lot.
Sure. But...
yeah, and then also, Les Mis got a lot of blowback, I think maybe slightly unfairly. I actually don't mind the Les Mis.
I thought it was fine.
yeah, I agree. It was probably fine. But yeah, generally speaking, I think I've said this before on this show, but, like, my problem with adaptations is always that, like, the format something is getting adapted to doesn't understand how to actually do the adaptation. It just wants to recreate the original beat for beat, and then it falls flat.
Right.
So that's usually why it doesn't work.
Right. And I think we'll talk about that in this, because, let's just up at the top, broad feelings about the movie.
I really liked most of it, but the parts that I didn't like are kind of outweighing the rest of the incredibly good work that happened. What about you?
I think I feel similarly, but I'm overall more positive on it. We'll talk about, probably the biggest point of contention here in a bit. But, I would give it like a B plus A minus. Like, yeah, I thought it was all right.
Yeah, I'll go B. B.
Yeah, I think that's, and we'll talk about why we feel about that. Feel that way here in the episode. But yeah, do we want to just like go through the plot summary? I assume either Wicked by heart or you've never heard of this. Like, there's no middle ground. I feel like.
Yeah. So spoilers for Wicked the movie. I will try my best to call out what they have added to the best of my recollection.
Yes, please do. Because actually, I am a little bit of a fake theater kid here. There'll be some parts that I was Sierra had to be like, "Hey, man, you should recognize this."
That's very funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to?
Why don't I read it and then you can jump in with the stuff that you remember and that you think they added.
Bueno, let's go.
So Wicked opens with the ending of The Wizard of Oz. We get like a shot of like the hat, the iconic witch's hat, the puddle of water, and we get the opening number. Like Ariana Grande is like reading from like a big like a PA system, being like, oh, there's been some news. Let me tell you about all the news about the Wicked Witch of the West. Ariana Grande, who is playing Glinda the Good Witch, descends in a pink bubble, much like she did in the iconic 39 movie. And she goes to Munchkinland, and they open with the number No One Warns the Wicked. Broadly, how are you feeling about this number?
Hi, welcome to Leyla's podcast within a podcast, where I'm going to go on a very quick tangent about how good No One Warns the Wicked in the Wicked film was. And I promise I'm not going to take up this much airspace for the rest of the show, but like I just need to set up.
This one's going to be a long one, folks. Like, listen, buckle in. When I said 3 hours up at the top, I kind of feel like we're not going to be that far off.
Yeah, it's good. It's hoo. So I think when I went into this movie with relatively low expectations because, as we said at the top of the show, like I am a skeptic of film adaptations because they never like think about the format. When I was watching No One Warns the Wicked, I got like chills. I was like, oh, I think they did it. I think the mad lad John Chu actually fucking did it. I think this is going to be a good movie. So No One Warns the Wicked is a song in which we get Ariana Grande coming down in that bubble, right? And immediately it's so, like, upon thinking about it later, we don't actually see Ariana do any magic. She presses a button to make the bubble come up, and she, like, physically pops it with her wand. So we don't actually see her do any magic. And the whole song is Ariana announcing that the Witch of the West is dead, and the Munchkins all coming out in celebration. And the really nice thing that the movie does is it takes advantage of its own format by giving Ariana Grande a bunch of these really tight close-ups on this like really tense, mournful expression on her face as she is surrounded by people celebrating the death of her best friend, and how she like all the she's a really good actress. I think people forget she started on stage and she started on television, so the pop thing came after. And the other thing that No One Warns the Wicked does as a number is, one, it establishes the difference between Glinda the Good and Galinda, because we only ever hear Glinda the Good use that kind of lofty operetto voice when she's making an announcement. She only does it in No One Warns the Wicked. She only does it in which this is a song that we'll see in part 2. Thank goodness. She does it a little bit in Loathing, or the what is this feeling?
Yes. And
it's only when she sings "These things are sent to try us," which is the announcement she makes to the group of students around her at Shiz when she's talking about Elphaba. It's not the fact she can't do magic, and also one of the things I really love about this movie is that No One Warns the Wicked sets up the language of the choreography. All the Ozians are it's very grounded choreo. They're constantly stomping and dragging their feet, which is a very like folksy method of dancing, but it's also setting up a contrast to defying gravity later on in the show, when you see that the entire populace is so like bound to the ground, and then you get Elphaba in defiance of that. I loved the big set pieces. I loved the like burning of the giant like straw witch. It's very dramatic. It knows what movie it's in. It's doing so much. It's showing the practicals. The costumes are like fucking incredible, and it's doing all of this setup. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about the end of the movie, but the problem is immediate in that the thing that No One Mourns the Wicked is doing is it's lyrically it is Glinda singing, and goodness knows the wicked's lives are lonely. Goodness knows the wicked die alone, which is doing two things. It is saying the thing, right? Hey, wicked people will die alone, but it is also Glinda separating herself from the concept of goodness. She's not saying, I, Glinda the Good, am telling you that the wicked die alone. It's the grand concept of goodness dictates that this is the thing, and the dramatic irony in the show is that she is the one left alone when her best friend and her ex-boyfriend run off because they are morally in the right. Right? And Wicked is fundamentally a show about consequences. It is a show about decisions that you make and the consequences of your actions and what you choose to prioritize in life. And for Glinda, it is being Glinda the Good. It is the of this, like, being the pride of all Oz and having these, like, this bubble and the dresses and the kind of trappings of being a sorceress. And, it's different for Elphaba. And, it's a beautiful dramatic irony. And I think one of the things that makes me sad about stretching this over 2 movies is that we are going to be a year removed from that irony by the time the people who've never seen Wicked before, like, figure out what happened.
Yeah. I think that, splitting this is a fundamental mistake. I think the second movie will be, broadly a disappointment because of how much stronger the first act of Wicked, just the musical, is. But that's a problem for next year. I basically agree with all of your points, and that was like a really good read on No One Mourns the Wicked, which is, one of my favorite songs in the musical. I think it's such a strong opening number. It sets the whole thing. It's like, hey, the story of The Wizard of Oz. Well, let's, invert it. Let's give the backstory for the Wicked Witch. Setting up the fact that, she is the daughter of the governor of Munchkinland, but because she was born green due to her mother's affair with, a mysterious hairbrush salesman or whatever, that creates a lot of tension between her and her father, which results in her mother, being, basically forced to eat medicine to prevent any sort of, quote unquote birth defect from happening to the second daughter, who is then born unable to use her legs and use a wheelchair for the rest of her existence. All of that like gets pretty efficiently set up. They do some stretching out of this song. They like show Elphaba's backstory and how she has psychic abilities. Maybe it's just because I'm an anime freak. I drew a lot of parallels between this movie and Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. There's a lot of I have telekinetic powers that are powered by emotion, but I can't control them. Which is, a very common trope, but I've been playing the Pokemon trading card game, so that's why I'm thinking about Mewtwo. I'm also just always thinking about Mewtwo.
As you should be.
But also, like Dragon Ball Z, there are some, especially with the Defying Gravity number there at the end, there's a lot of, acrobatic, moving around parallels. We'll get there. I think that it's so... I'm glad that you thought about the close-up shots immediately, because that was my first thought. I was like, okay, what's the difference between this and the stage play? Well, on the stage... you have to do big, broad gestures because you're playing to the people who are sitting, 30 rows back or whatever. They have to understand the emotion and the character and the story without being able to see the look on your face. But now that we are getting, Ariana Grande on a, 20, 30 foot screen, you can see her face. And I genuinely loved the heartbreak. She looks like she's going to fucking cry throughout all of it, which is awesome. Because she's like, yeah, that terrible lady who was my best friend in the whole world. I'm so glad she's fucking dead. But also knowing the story of where Wicked goes, she did also steal your fiance. So it's such a potent mix of grief and rage, and I just loved seeing Ariana's face like that, just all screwed up. But I also think that this comes to a tonal issue, not issue, but weird feeling that I had throughout the movie, which was that Ariana Grande, or not just because Wicked is a musical, right? They're doing big, broad emotional beats. So, when you get this bit where the little child wanders up and is like, oh, Miss Glinda, are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? And like, oh, were you friends? Like, it reads to me very different. Like, I because I'm, bringing the expectations of, a theater, like, or not a theater, like a moviegoer to a Broadway play. It has a tonal dissonance for me that, like, I don't think is bad. I just think it's interesting to be like, oh, I don't know that I'm supposed to like see this person's face. I think they're supposed to just be some audience member, calling out a line, and the attention is really supposed to be on the person in the middle of the stage. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
I agree. I don't think they could have. I think they could have avoided the close up on the kid. I do think the young lady who did the "I heard you were friends" line had like a really wonderful intensity to her. Like, I remember that close up. Was she just like was staring down Ariana Grande, and I was like, ooh, they picked a good one for that. So yeah, I'm of mixed feeling about it, but I do think, I mean, this whole movie, I think you could have cut 40 minutes just in like pauses, and not just in the songs, which we'll get to, but I think you could have cut just like the pausing to like, I don't know. We should go to the next song because it's pervasive.
One thing I did also want to, like, Ariana or Glinda is a as at this point, an agent of the state, basically like a head of propaganda. It is very strange for me to think that she would be descending into a field of what are basically like peasant farmers to talk about how they've crushed their evil enemy. I don't know if you have any thoughts, but like, I'm always thinking about the factions and politics of fictional worlds. And I just think it's very funny to be like, okay, maybe because Elphaba was the daughter of the, former governor of Munchkinland, and her sister, is married to the governor of Munchkinland. Her first thought is to like go to the Munchkins and be like, listen, I have to quell the any possible rebel sentiment in our agricultural base. I don't know. I just think it's a very funny thing for Ariana, like in this glamorous. I keep saying Ariana, and that's another thing, is that it was very distracting to me that there were celebrities in these movies, which is silly, I know, but I was just like, that's Ariana Grande, that's Jeff Goldblum, like, it's fine. But anyway.
I got immersed enough where I was like, it was fine. I thought they all did a good enough job. Where it's not like Beyonce, in oh my god, it's not enough as the I forget what the name is. Obsessed. I don't remember. Beyonce tried acting for a little while. It didn't go well. Or like Beyonce in like Austin Powers, right? It wasn't that distracting to me. I thought they did good enough. I mean, like, if you think about the structure of the song, right, she's there as, like, a physical presence to calm them, because the whole movie starts out with these kids, like, running through the real fucking tulip field, as we found out today.
Planted 9 million flowers for that shot. Incredible.
These are so many, and, like, the shiz is, oh my god, just incredible practicals. I'm so glad they spent money on that. And so these kids running through, and then it's the choir going, she's dead, good news, she's dead, the Witch of the West is dead. The wickedest witch there ever was. The enemy of all of us here in Oz is dead. Off the top of my head, by the way. And then Ariana floats down in her bubble, and her opener or it's one of her first lines is, "Isn't it nice to know that good can conquer evil?" And she's doing it in this big, floaty operetto, right? And all of it's very just like calming. So yeah, she's just kind of there to like, she's there to soothe the people, right?
Yeah.
She's setting up a contrast between the chaos of the witch and the like, isn't everything so just like lovely here in Oz, so.
And I mean, that's kind of her whole character, is like her whole deal is the ability to influence the students of shiz, right? So it makes sense that like that would be broadened out in her, professional life.
Which I wish there was more of an emphasis on that, because her and Elphaba, so one of the things they added is scenes between Elphaba and Madame Morrible, played by Michelle Yeoh. Crushed it! Michelle Yeoh showed up, Surf Cunt was evil. Incredible. Loved her costumes. But it really grounded, it gave an emphasis to Elphaba's talent as a sorceress. And then I feel like we didn't get as much emphasis on Glinda's power as a communicator, even though that's what the song Popular is really about.
Right. Anyway, so we get the whole backstory of, how Elphaba grew up. Daughter of the Munchkin governor, etc. Yes?
The little girl who plays the younger... First of all, the actress who plays Nessa Rose, Marissa Bode, incredible. What a wonderful performer. I'm so glad she got a chance. Baby Nessa Rose is the cutest little kid I've ever seen in my entire life. She is very cute.
She's just basically like, yep, no,
Just very the cutest listen, I'm not like a baby person, but just the cutest cheeks I've ever fucking seen.
Adorable. Yeah, no. But both the kid actors were very good in this scene. But eventually they grow up and they go to Shiz University, which is basically like a Aussian Ivy League or whatever. So, Glinda's going because like she, has money and connections and she's like, a popular girl. So it makes sense that she's going. Her fervent dream is to study sorcery. Under Dean Morrible, who is like one of the most renowned sorcerers in Oz. But Elphaba's going here because she needs to take care of her sister Nessa Rose, who is actually the person who is being sent to this school because of the governor wants his one daughter to have a great education. He kind of hates Elphaba's guts, which I just love how this movie, portrays that everybody except for Elphaba sucks. I think it's really good. It's just nice to see how bad everybody is. I like it when everybody's motivations are pretty, basic, but also like it's just nice. It's like, most people are kind of, I like when everybody has sharp edges.
Yeah, it's a musical based on a children's book, so like
it's based on a very adult book, but
but the source material is
right.
A children's, right. Morality tale. So like I'm not really looking for depth.
Yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, there's the scene where Elphaba really gets recognized by Morrible is when one of the like administrators of the school comes to like assist Nessa Rose and basically like takes her chair and Nessa Rose is like, hey, please don't fucking do that. I can move the chair on my own. And Elphaba gets really upset, and because her powers are activated by emotions, sends like a psychic wave through Shiz, and Morrible sees it and is like, yeah, that was me. And anyway, I'm going to take Elphaba under my wing, and I'm going to make you my student because like you're clearly magically gifted. And like I think that scene is like completely fine, but watching this, a lot of this set stuff we're going to be bringing up comes from this Architectural Digest interview with production designer Nathan Crowley, who oversaw a lot of the set stuff for Wicked, and that. Just like learning how they built Shiz is fucking crazy. Like they made it like a 50-foot set, and then they put a water tank behind it so that way they could have the shots of the boats coming in, and then like have shots of the cameras of getting the boats coming in. It sounds like a nightmare to do, but it turned out so good. And like that's the thing. Like I felt like so much of the movie used CGI, but like seeing how much actual practical stuff in it, was actually implemented. I don't know. Like, did you feel like there was a lot of CGI in this movie?
I did, but I think I agree with Nathan Crowley because you sent me that interview. He says that the best use of CGI is to remove, not to add. Like removing people in green suits or removing harnesses and wires and stuff. And when the movie does that, it looks really, really good. When it tries to add a bunch of stuff, I'm like, I would have honestly rather seen Wizard of Oz style matte paintings, like giant. When I lived in Austin, there was a touring like show of matte paintings from big productions. Ooh. And you can just like walk through and it's these giant canvases with like cityscapes, and they're so clever because there's like holes poked through the windows of houses and like lights behind them, so it's actual lights twinkling through these like big giant cloths, and they're so impressive. And like if you stand at the right angle, it looks so real. I would have almost rather seen that, especially for like the train shot, especially for some of the backdrops in Oz, but like broadly I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. But like, I don't know. A lot of it was so fantastical that I was like, I can't believe that any of this is not CGI. And maybe that is a personal failing on my part, is just to assume that everything is CG. But yeah, like just seeing the set of Shiz is very impressive, because like all of there's a library scene later on like that has like a bunch of rotating bookshelves that look incredible. But we'll get there. Yeah, I mean, like overall, how do you feel about this initial scene? Any broad steps, or should we just go straight to what is this feeling?
I think it could have been a little snappier, but overall, I quite liked it.
Listen, that could be said of the entire movie.
Yeah.
I think that they absolutely did extend it to a point where it was unnecessary, but they're doing it on purpose, so whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at this at this moment where Elphaba does her psychic blast, we learn a couple things. We see like basically a piece of furniture flies up and hits the seal of Shiz, and it cracks open, and you see that underneath the seal is like some like talking animals, which will play into the rest of the movie, because like there's a whole conspiracy of people being racist against talking animals, and like that's like kind of the big thing that Elphaba gets caught up in, is like a radical movement to protect the animals. But like, because Morrible, takes Elphaba under her wing, she like is like, oh, you're gonna need a roommate. Glinda like wants to come up and talk to Morrible, and she accidentally volunteers to be Elphaba's roommate, and then they have to have the scene where they start to live with each other. And how do you feel about what is this feeling?
I thought it was fun. They're dancing. They're competing with each other. They're fighting over desks.
Yeah.
It's like petty. It's fun. The students of Shiz are in it.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're all just like shitting on Elphaba in front of her face. I thought it was a delightful scene. It was just fun.
It's really good. There's a lot of fun dynamic action, between them just like squabbling over various wardrobe arrangements. It does start with bisexual lighting, which is notable considering how, you said this in our Wizard of Oz episode. You've said this countless times, like there's basically, of course, when the love interest is introduced, there is some, attraction between Glinda and Fiyero, but like there's a lot more emotional energy going on between Elphaba and Glinda. And I think the movie leans into that, to be completely honest.
I think it does too. I will say I've always loved Fiyero, because I love a singing dumbass. Like, I don't know. Sorry, I'm not immune to a himbo. We'll talk about Jonathan Bailey, but like, that man is fighting for his life to be relevant in this movie, and it worked on me in like a big way.
How so?
We'll talk about Dancing Through Life.
Okay, sure.
We'll get there.
Yeah. There's also, going on, like we see Elphaba's, studies with Madame Morrible, and we get her like with Morrible being like, hey, I think you're going to be good enough to actually meet the wizard one day. And we get The Wizard and I, which is Elphaba's I Want song, where she talks about how like she hopes to grow up to be a sorceress, and then the wizard will grant her wish, which is to change her skin color to a non-green skin color.
But she does, that's not important to her. Of course not.
Right. And that's very fun, like where she's like, yeah, I would play it off like, oh, that's not important to me, but it actually truly is, which is completely understandable. I think her character arc is pretty clear and is enacted well in this movie. We also got a couple other characters. We get Bach Woodsman, who is the little munchkin who is infatuated with Glinda, who eventually ends up with Nessarose. And then we also get Dr. Dillamond, who is like their history teacher. He is a talking goat, and he tells his students like, my whole deal with teaching history is like, there used to be a lot more animal influence in Oz, but as of late we're being discriminated against. Eventually culminating in a scene where somebody writes the phrase "animals should be seen and not heard" on his like chalkboard, which is like very hateful. It's hate speech basically. He gets very upset, and Elphaba decides to tries to help him out, cleans it up, and she eventually follows him back to a meeting of radical animals where they they think, they talk about how maybe the wizard, they could seek out the wizard and they could solve animal racism, which is sure fine.
Yeah.
It's I know he has a song there. This is what's his name who plays Dillamond? It's
Peter Dinklage.
Pete Dinklage, yeah. I think he does a completely fine job. But it's a CGI goat, so like, yeah, it's fine.
I do love, and this is a success of production design, I love the goat accessible set dressing.
Yes, that is cool.
There's a bunch of like things he can push on with both of his back hooves. He can just like kick out to trigger things. He can do things with his teeth. His teacups have like hoof slots.
Right.
Really good.
It is really good, and I had noticed that too. Like, it is such an interesting way to, like, take into account how maybe an animal would be accommodated for in, a setting like this, and then how when those accommodations are coming under fire, like how that can be used as a point of material discrimination against them. Just really, those are the little things that like you are able to get in a movie like this that you can't get out of a stage production, which I think I'm really impressed by. God, who directed this movie? John Chu. And like I think you have to give it up to that because like they do make really good use of being a movie in this for the most part.
Yes, I fully agree. And one tiny note about where is it? The Wizard and I. The Wizard and I love that song in the stage musical. I think it's really good. I think it does a lot of great foreshadowing for the rest of the show, right? Because she has a vision, almost like a prophecy. Someday, throughout all of Oz, there'll be a celebration all to do with me. Meep. I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah. The Wizard and I did feel, for the first time in that movie, I was like, I don't think they know what to do physically with Elphaba right now.
Yeah, they did just kind of have her like wandering around Shiz.
Yeah, I wish that they had maybe leaned in a little bit more. Because on the stage, right, you're just like doing a soliloquy to the audience, like you're just singing out. I didn't really need her running through a field to the cliff. I didn't need any of that. She could have just like stood somewhere and sang, and we could have maybe played with the camera or something. I was like, I don't think this movie did so well with the big group numbers. I just wish it had done a little bit more with the intimate. I feel like it was maybe afraid of intimacy. Maybe that's what it was. This movie is afraid of intimacy.
Oh, I don't think that's true at all. As we'll talk about in Dancing Through Life.
That's true. That's true.
I actually really like the cliff scene. I thought the cliff scene was completely fine. I mean, actually, I liked it a lot, is what I mean to say. Like, I don't know if it's just like the seeing her go through a big like wheat field essentially out into like an actual, that's also a real cliff I learned, yes. Which is really cool. Again,
it's very Gladiator.
It didn't look real though, which is weird. Like I thought that entire bit was CGI, which
it's the lighting.
I must be. I don't know why I felt wrong with that, but yeah. But I don't know. I just thought it was really cool to see her like go out from all of this like, the very enclosed shots of her in, Shiz and the courtyard, etc., to go out into this open field and just, be able to do her singing.
That's fair enough.
I think that broadly, Cynthia Erivo is just like a really, really good singer. So.
Oh yeah, no, she's incredible. I think that's fair. I do like the contrast of like having her break out of the enclosures. I think what I think is making me feel awkward about it is watching her turn around and run back. That made me feel. I was like, just cut.
Yeah, no, that you shouldn't have her do the like 1,000 meter jog back to Shiz. It was a long hike. Yeah, anyway, that's The Wizard and I, which I think was very well done. Mm-hmm. We talked about the animal racism. Mm-hmm. One thing I do wish that the movie had leaned in more to, and maybe this again is just me and my politics, wanting to get into fantasy politics, is like it's not really explained why animals are being discriminated against, besides the broader like people need someone to blame. And I mean, that's fine, right? It works completely fine in the musical, but I do wish the movie had like allocated a little bit more of its runtime to be like, here's, the material reasons for why it would be useful for us. Like, it's very easy just to go, animals can be used as labor tools. Like, I think that would have been, and maybe they'll do that in part 2 because God fucking knows they need to pad that one out. So
yeah,
I do wish they had leaned into that more.
I think you're hitting on the core problem with adding stuff to this kind of thing, to this kind of show, which is that it begins to float into the uncanny valley of detail, where it's like there's in the musical, everything's just kind of vibes, and you're like, ooh,
Yes.
my disbelief is so suspended, and we're like up here, and I totally buy everything that's happening. And then the movie is just adding just enough detail to give you time to think about what's happening on screen. Like you're not moving through like banger, 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 banger. You're sitting there. It's the same thing with the animals as it is with Elphaba and her powers versus how powerful Glinda is in comparison. Like, Glinda feels weaker. She doesn't feel like an equal and opposite to Elphaba because we don't spend enough time with Glinda's skill set. We spend too much time with Elphaba's skill set. The same thing with the animals, where it's like, in the musical, it's enough to say there's something bad happening in Oz.
Right.
But in the movie, you're getting too much time with it, and you're like, wait, but why?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So, pluses and minuses for being able to zoom into that level of detail. But that's
Exactly.
a great point, right? The suspension of disbelief is a big part of why musicals work. And I think the film does struggle with that.
Yeah, for sure.
But here is the scene that or the sequence that also both shows the strengths and weaknesses of this adaptation. Let's talk about Dancing Through Life.
I want to inject this sequence into my fucking veins. I want to concentrate. I want to put it into a syringe and fucking what is that Tarantino movie? Pulp Fiction style, just right into the heart. Oh my God, Jonathan Bailey, the man that you are. First of all, do you remember we've cited this essay multiple times, but everyone's hot, no one's horny. Jonathan Bailey, hot and horny. Jonathan Bailey knows how to he knows how to get in your space. And it is hot. And he does it well. He does it great in Bridgerton, does it great here. He's a very fine man doing fine man things. I was into it. And then just the barrel bookcases, taking the choreography, doing flips and shit on those ladders, having Jonathan Bailey hang off of the feet of Ethan Slater as Bach, and using the books as props to slide on and do a bunch of fun. It's just good.
Yeah, they built out the circular bookshelves in the library. So when they actually do the library scene, they are like you say, doing acrobatics off of them. But another detail that Crowley points out is that when the ladders all align, they create a Z, so it's spelling out Oz, which is a fun little thing that doesn't matter, but is also so that's great use of the set. It's that sequence really worked for me because I Dancing Through Life is again one of my favorite songs in the movie or in the play.
Same.
And I think so. My big gripe is that Jonathan Bailey does not look like he should be a college undergrad.
It's fine. I'm gonna forgive it.
He's 45.
He's so hot. You know what? None of them look like there should be undergrads. In my brain, I'm like, these are grad students.
Some
these
of
are
them look
PhDs.
Some of them look young enough, but Jonathan Bailey really did distract me. I was like, oh yeah, you came from the Bridgerton timeline to be here. That's how old you are.
Yeah, I think you gotta be me. You gotta be hot enough for him to forget. I was looking at him.
I'm sure he worked for a lot of people.
It's just heart eyes for me. I'm like, oh, he could have been 60 in this role, and I would have been like, damn.
Yeah, it's incredible. I also, this sequence is long as fuck. The whole Dancing Through Life as a song is also very long. I think the whole musical sequence is I was gonna say 9 minutes. So pretty long. This is 25 minutes long.
Yeah. So this is where the bad feeling was starting for me.
Sure.
Was this the beginning of it for you?
Okay, well, the bad feeling that was happening for me around this time was squarely located in my anatomy, specifically under my kidneys, because I had to piss so fucking badly at this point. I was like, I just needed to make it through Dancing Through Life, and then I can go pee. Because I had looked up right before, during the copious, movie advertisements before this, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to piss because we just got a Coca-Cola, and I know who I am, and I didn't make it. I was like, okay, I know that like 10 minutes after Popular, I can go piss, but I was like, I'm not gonna make it to Popular because Dancing Through Life just went on and on and on. So I liked this scene. I didn't, but I did immediately start to notice like this song is going on too long, and I am in pain.
Yes, because they fully stop the scene to get to the Ozdust ballroom, which in the musical is just Fiyero saying, let's go down to the Ozdust ballroom. I'll meet you later tonight. Him and Glinda have a little thing. Sorry, Galinda still at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
Have a little thing. And then the set literally moves apart. And as the chorus is singing Dancing Through Life, and they start the dance sequence. Here instead, we get Fiyero and Galinda doing their thing, which again, hot, loved it. You get Elphaba going to Madame Morrible because Nessa Rose wanted to thank Galinda for setting her up with Bach. And then you also get this, I think this is where you get the stupid scene of Ariana Grande, Bowen Yang, and then that third woman, I'm sorry, I don't know what her name is, in the room deciding to give Elphaba the hat, which is a completely unnecessary scene. Just give her the fucking hat.
Sure.
And then all of them getting dressed up and sneaking out onto the boat to get to the finish the song.
It was a little much. I don't think
just finish the song.
Yeah.
And then they get to the Ozdust ballroom, they have a little dance sequence, and then they stop it again for Elphaba getting there and then doing a solo dance in silence until Ariana Grande joins us.
Okay, so I agree with the point you're making. I think they did really cut their knees out from under them by like slowing the momentum of that song, which is supposed to, you told me to watch this part of an essay by, what's his name? I'm looking at Sideways. Which is about cats, and he brings up this point that quote, so many numbers in this musical were interrupted for completely pointless reasons, and I was like, oh, that's why Leyla wants me to watch this section, because yes, that is a big problem with some of the major numbers in this movie. I think you're right that it does make this mistake multiple times. I think I will forgive it specifically for the Elphaba sequence because it is supposed to be deeply uncomfortable and agonizing to watch Elphaba do her little crane dance by herself in her ugly hat, and everybody's making fun of her. I think that works for me. But I think overall they should have really tried to keep it as close to 10 minutes as possible.
Yeah, if it was the only time they had paused the song, it would be to do that sequence in silence, I would be totally on your page. But because it was the second or third pause, I was losing my mind a little bit.
Yes, yeah. They stretch the sequence out to the point where it does hurt the song, I think. But I still like it. I still think it fundamentally gets to where it needs to be, which is Dancing Through Life is the crux of the musical, or at least not the musical of Act 1, because it's it is the crossover from when Elphaba and Galinda hate each other to actually starting to like each other, because Galinda, to be fair, she's what is your read on her move with Bach here? Is it just to get Bach to stop bothering her, or is it specifically to get Nessa Rose on her side to get at Elphaba?
No, it's absolutely just get Bick away from me.
Yeah,
she literally doesn't even know this man's name. She just knows he keeps approaching her, and she's like, oh my god, well, what about this over there? And like, she forgets she has object impermanence with Bach. The moment he leaves her sight line, she's
she forgets about him. I think I would agree with that in the stage play, but here there is a shot of Galinda like looking over at Nessa Rose, and there's like a second where she's contemplating it, and it makes me feel like there is a viable read to be like, oh, she's doing this because she just wants to fuck with Elphaba, and I like that more, even if it's not necessarily true, because it helps build the complexity with like, oh, her initial mean thing is actually the like core of their relationship, which I personally like.
I can see that read. I like it. I don't know if I don't know
if it's supported, but that is the read I have in my heart.
Yeah, no, of course. I like the idea of it. I'm just so used to the dismissal, Also, It's very funny that, it's Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater who are currently dating. It's very funny that you're just
That's fun.
Oh, yeah, the 2 marriages got broken up for those 2 people to get together. So
I know about Ariana Grande. I mean, congrats to Ethan Slater, I guess. I don't know. Y'all, maybe just stay with your partners. It's probably better that way for everyone. But
yeah. Very messy. It can't be a Wizard of Oz, apparently, without a mess on the set.
Sure. Anyway, they don't give Bach much to do in this whole movie, which is disappointing, but like that's also kind of his whole. I do wish that we had a little bit more Bach. Like,
same.
He gets the most screen time in the movie in this sequence where he is like, ignoring Nessa Rose at the club, and then when he sees Galinda making out with Fiora, he's like, actually, let's go dance, Nessa. And like, that's the core of, their relationship, which I like, as a narrative beat. It's really great to be like, oh, your relationship is built on a lie just because somebody that you were in love with, like, doesn't give a shit about you and dumped you on someone else. I think that's great. I love mess. But yeah, again, I wish we had seen a little bit more of Nessa's, and Bach's like weird, relationship coming together, or rather, falling apart, which maybe that's what'll happen in 2. Who knows?
Have you ever actually seen the SpongeBob musical?
Oh no.
It's really good.
I've heard that from you many times.
I don't like SpongeBob, so I think the SpongeBob musical is really, really good. Ethan Slater is an incredibly charming performer, so I think you're right here. I think he was a little bit underutilized, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this whole sequence, the actual climax of it comes where they have this dance where Elphaba's, doing this really uncomfortable dance all by herself. Fiora, really starts to take notice of her, and she's like, oh, she doesn't give a shit about what anybody else thinks. And then right after, like before Elphaba comes here, we get Morrible coming down and being like, hey, Galinda, my student, demanded that you be in our, sorcery seminar. I have no idea why, but you better go, say thanks to her because she's the most important person in the world to me. And I just like that. I like that whole narrative beat. And that's not really the movie's, idea, but seeing Michelle Yeoh and Ariana Grande, like, have this, like, weird, like, Michelle Yeoh, I unfortunately haven't seen any of her like Hong Kong action movies. I haven't even seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, even though I need to. But like I've mostly known her in Everything Everywhere All at Once and Crazy Rich Asians, in which she plays a mean Asian mom, and like her bringing that full like mean like no nonsense, I don't want to say elder, but like distinguished older woman to this performance, and just like giving nothing to Galinda is just like absolute disdain and scorn for her the entire time. I loved seeing that from Michelle Yeoh, and like so seeing her direct that towards Galinda, and then being like Galinda be like, oh fuck, this person who hates me like actually is throwing me a bone because of this person who I've just ruined their life. I have to go do something. And then they have this like really, sincere moment, which like is uncomfortable. And I don't even know if it works the whole way, but it is played with such sincerity and emotion that like you have to give it up.
I do. I actually think one of the best beats. So Madame Morrible hands Michelle Yeoh Galinda a training wand. Mm-hmm. It's just this like very plain crystal training wand. I think one of the best beats in this sequence is watching Galinda make eye contact with Elphaba and hide it behind her back. Just, ooh, again, like the performances in this movie are so good. there's not a single weak link. Everybody's putting everything into it. I think the casting was really, really great. I think, everybody was up in arms about Cynthia and Ariana or whatever, but I don't know. I think they did really wonderful jobs. And just the editing, man, really killed me. But overall, like, I think even just talking, I'd kind of gotten more down on the movie over the last couple of days as I've been like sitting and thinking about it. But just like talking about it with you, I'm like, man, there were so many like just great moments of filmmaking like packed into here, and I think this was definitely one of them.
Yeah, I agree. So at this point, they come together, they have this fun dance, and then Elphaba and Ariana are not, and Galinda, they go back to their room and they're like, oh, I can't sleep, and then Galinda is like, let me tell you a secret. Fiyero is going to marry me. And Elphaba's like, oh, wait, what the fuck? And then Galinda's like, well, he doesn't know that yet. But, and then she's like, why don't you tell me a secret from you? And Elphaba's like, oh, well, my father hates me. And it's because, he has good reason to. And at that moment, I had to piss, so I left the theater because I was like, I don't think this part's going to matter. And I'm guessing it didn't, because it's like, yeah, my dad hates me because of the way that I am. And that gave Anessa Rose, her illness. I asked my wife, and she said I didn't miss anything. Was there anything in that moment that I missed?
Nope, you just get the backstory of like the flowers and all that stuff, and then we get into Popular, which I thought was very, very fun.
I was very lucky to like the beat I got back and sat down. It was indeed my acid chair, and I was like, perfect timing. I'm the piss lord. What's up? Popular was great. It's like the Galinda song. And I think it's like very core to Ariana. Are you making a note for the episode title? Okay, sure. I think that Ariana Grande was like built to do Popular, and Sierra's told me that like she is like has like a personal relationship with Kristen Chenoweth, and like has loved Wicked like from the core of her being since she was a young girl. Which like sure, whatever, go off, queen. But like, I think she does a great job in Popular. It's a completely fun song, and yeah.
Well, Ariana always wanted to play Elphaba.
Oh, really?
Yes, Ariana always wanted to play Elphaba, but she got cast as Glinda.
I mean,
which she still did an excellent job. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's Kristen Chenoweth also really likes her. Kristen Chenoweth either wanted Ariana or the girl who played Galinda in the. Oh my god, it was one of the televised. She didn't play Galinda. She played someone in one of the televised like musical adaptations, but they were in it. Hairspray. She was in this. She played something in Hairspray. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But I thought Ariana does great. This is a fun number. I think the one takeaway I have from Popular is Ariana at one point grabs onto a chandelier, does a full split in midair while doing the la la part of the song, and is like spinning around. And the only thing I can think of during that sequence is I'm like, God damn the core strength on that woman.
Yeah, I mean, like, like I think they did. I don't know if Ariana did her own stunts, but I know
Cynthia Erivo
did, and like it seems like they just did like a remarkable amount of training and like actually putting in the work for this. So shout outs.
I mean, if you watch that clip of Cynthia Erivo for Defying Gravity when she's in that like that brace, like floating and then flipping, you can literally watch her in real time stabilize herself from her core while singing. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild that she's saying all of that while in basically like a fucking robot arm, like the Assassin's Creed movie. Just like
it's really crazy.
Yeah. And then from there we get the plot continues to move forward. We get Dillamond announcing that he is going to be forced into retirement because of racism. And then they immediately follow up his expulsion with this new professor bringing in, the animal that will become the Cowardly Lion in a little cage. And at that point, Elphaba does a like magical poppy spell, puts everybody in the classroom to sleep except for herself and Fiyero. They escape with the lion cub and they free it in the forest. And they have this like brief moment where Elphaba like, touches Fiyero's face a little bit and then, they're like, oh, gotta go, and we get Not That Girl. Any thoughts on that?
It's not my favorite song, and it's just Elphaba walking, so yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I mean, honestly, I thought it actually got undercut by the fact that like you could see Fiero's face, who is like very plainly the whole time, like, because she is like singing from the shadows of like the courtyard in Shiz, but like you can see Fiero like plainly looking around, like, oh, where is she? And like I it does kind of irritate me for that Elphaba's like, oh, he could never love me. Don't wish, don't start. Wishing only wounds the heart. Well, he's clearly like, where the fuck's Elphaba? Oh my god, I need to talk to that avocado right now. Like it's I get again one of the detractions of being able to see the performers' faces.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, even if you couldn't see his face, it's a pretty wide shot. He is physically doing full body turns, scanning the courtyard of Shiz for this green woman.
Yeah,
I thought it was fine. But again, Not That Girl's not really. I don't know.
It's a fine number.
It's a fine. Yeah, it's whatever.
Anyway, from that we also get Madame Morrible like coming in. I actually like the scene. I'm certain the poppies were CG, but like she comes in to the scene and sees all these poppies like floating in the air, like, and I think that's a really cool shot. But she's like, okay, she's ready. She writes a letter to the wizard. The wizard sends a letter back that's like, hey, bring her on in. And they both Elphaba and Glinda, now Glinda. We didn't explain this, but basically she changes her name because Dr. Dillamond couldn't pronounce her name Galinda. He just pronounced it Glinda because he's a goat. He like doesn't have the anatomy for that. And like I think this is probably in the stage play. I'm sure that moment is in the stage play, but like it is such a great moment of characterization for Glinda. Because like it shows that like she like fully doesn't understand, because this moment is happening right as Fiero is like not doing anything, like it's like fully focused on Elphaba. Like they are clearly having a moment, and Glinda like doesn't see it, and she's like, oh, that was also important and effective, like that's, we all cared about that moment so much that I have to do something. And like she changes her name, ostensibly as a moment, a point of solidarity, but like truly, but because she like doesn't, she like wants to be at the same level that her friends, Elphaba and Fiero are. And like I just love that bit because it's like heartbreaking to see Glinda like fully miss the point and then like take this big gesture, which is something that like all her fans are like, oh yeah, that's so great, you're a saint, you're so heroic, but like in her like her actual motivation is like completely whiffing. I just think that's a great character moment.
I agree. And yeah, it is in the stage play. This one, it changes her name. And I thought there was also a really nice touch of Fiero wearing a poppy in his jacket.
Yes.
I thought that was really lovely. So
100%.
There's a big theme of like flowers, just generally speaking, in this show. It's a very funny moment. And then, they get on the very cool train and they go to Oz. And that's when Elphaba like invites Glinda to come with her. And this is where I started to feel like it doesn't make in the context of the show, it makes sense to me why these two women would go together, because their moments were very much like, I hate you, wait, you did something for me, you're the best. But like at this point in the movie, we have spent more time with Elphaba as a sorceress than we have with Glinda as a communicator, so it felt straight. There was like a power imbalance between them. It felt a little bit strange.
Yeah, it does feel just like that Glinda just got like, taken along for the ride because Elphaba felt sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's a fair read. And then we do One Short Day. We see the Emerald City. Again, a lot of that stuff is built out practically, although certainly not all of it. But like, what do you feel about One Short Day?
I had fun. It was a fun group number. And here comes our cameos from the OGs, from Adele Dazeem and Kristen Chenoweth. Like, here they come. They get to do their little Oz City Players.
Yes.
Or Emerald City Players bit. They, first of all, look great. Idina Menzel, Kristen Chenoweth look amazing. Second of all, love their costumes. Third of all, very fun bit between the two of them.
Yeah.
Where, like, Kristen's constantly upstaging Idina. Very fun. My one critique, just one, I I don't think they should have had Idina do her riff from Defying Gravity.
Yep, I didn't like that. I was like, come on, we know. But here's the thing, I didn't know. Sierra was like, hey, that's Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, and I was like, oh, word? Because I saw Sierra react like in her chair, and I was like, oh, is that? And she's like, that's them. And I was like, oh, so I'm a fake theater kid. I don't know what they look like. I was like, I know what Elsa looks like. I know what Elphaba looks like. I don't know what Idina Menzel looks like.
Like that.
Like that, apparently.
I know.
Yeah. I think my biggest problem with One Short Day, and I think this might again be a problem with the stage play, is that here they introduce the concept of the Grimoire, where they're like, hey, here's this magic book that gives the wizard his power or whatever, and he's the only one who can read it. And I was like, we are 2 hours into the movie. This should have been introduced way earlier.
I want to say that portion is added.
I Sierra said so too, right? Like, definitely the part where they explain the ancient, whatever. But the Grimoire bit, I'm pretty sure, is in the play, right?
Yes, but I think it's just straight up explained when they're in front of it.
Okay.
I don't, because the whole Emerald City Players bit is added as a cameo for Kristen and Idina. It's not in there. One Short Day is just Glinda and Elphaba kind of like having a romp. And this is where structurally we get into the fact that we are 2 hours into a 3-hour movie. This is just Act 1 in the play.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I think it would have made more sense for me if the Grimoire had been introduced like just immediately in the scene for the stage play. But again, because I'm bringing the expectations of a movie, I wanted it to be set up earlier. So it felt very weird. And like having that moment where they, I liked the cameo, was fun. Shout outs to Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, but like, a little bit of a weird moment. Narratively speaking. Anyway,
it could have been a shorter cameo, to be honest with you.
It was a little long.
It was a little long, and like it was a little fan servicey because you got the one-on-one shot of like Idina standing next to Cynthia and Kristen standing next to Aria. And I'm like, okay.
I know, I know it's for fun. It's for the theater dorks, but I was just like, all right, let's keep going.
We are the theater dorks.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't have known, to be fair. So like,
it's me. I'm the theater dork. And I'm saying it could have been shorter.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough. Anyway, they finally go to the Emerald City, and Leyla, the work that we've been doing on Mortified for the past 5 years has been really important to me. Both from an emotional standpoint, it's nice to have somebody to talk to regularly. From a like creative standpoint, it's nice to be able to talk through my ideas about storytelling and writing and the craft with somebody. But I think probably the most important contribution Mortified has had to society is that somebody out there heard the call for puppets. Because there's a fucking sick puppet in this movie.
15-foot tall head!
And like, here's the thing. I am so torn on this because I thought it was CGI. I would have sworn that. Yeah, I don't know why it looked so fake to me, but it's a real cool, like, mecha puppet. It looks so cool.
It's
and they made it.
It's the lighting. The lighting's fucky. But, like, it's so cool. It's big and it floats and it comes through that fucking curtain. And then it's Jeff Goldblum, who's just so charming fucking behind. It's a good scene. The pyrotechnics. Because one of the things you called out in our Wizard of Oz episode was just, like, it was kind of weird to have the pyrotechnics in front. You couldn't quite see the head. But here, you can see the head. The curtain frames it, right? That, like, shredded curtain frames it. And then you have the pyrotechnics on the side of this giant room blowing in. It's just good. Nathan Crowley, the man that you are.
Yeah, listen, shout outs to Nathan Crowley.
And his whole team.
Like, obviously that was a team of like probably hundreds of people. But the puppet looks so cool. They get the Oz thing. He comes down. They're all very scared. But then the wizard comes out from behind and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up? I'm just Jeff Goldblum." Again, him being Jeff Goldblum did distract me. I was like, okay, he's being Jeff Goldblum in the way that he is. But it was fine. He played like an old dorky wizard, or not even old, but just like kind of a I'm kind of a silly guy. I'm Jeff Goldblum. You remember me from Jurassic Park. And we get to the point where Madame Warble shows up. She's like, "Hey, I didn't want to miss your big day." They I gotta talk about the sequence where they like step into the Oz painting map, where they're like, oh, okay, we have to like make a road to unite Oz, and like it at first looks like it's a painting, but then they step into it and it's like a series of miniatures. That's so good. It looked really, really cool.
So horny for it. It's incredible.
They do a Sentimental Man, which they, I believe, mercifully cut short because it's a nothing song.
Yeah, thank God. Did you pick up at all, though? It is important to have the wizard sing, because did you pick up that it's implied that he is Elphaba's actual dad?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's text, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just because, the whole break in No One Mourns the Wicked, the Have a Little Drink, My Dark-Eyed Beauty, that's very distinctly Jeff Goldblum singing.
Yes, no, you could tell. And you don't put things like, oh man, I always wanted to be a father in a movie about somebody whose father who doesn't love them and who has like questionable parentage, and then not have that pay off. You should know that the wizard's her father, even if Elphaba doesn't, as an audience member. But yeah, like we get him saying all this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Elphaba, I'll give you whatever you want." And it's at this point where she's like, "Oh, I have the opportunity to ask to not be green anymore, but what I actually want to ask is for you to help do something about animal racism." And they're like, "Yeah, oh yeah, we'll get on that for sure. Can you put wings on our monkey guards though?" And she does the spell from the Grimoire. They take her in front of the Grimoire. She reads out of it. She's able to read out of it, more than like anybody has ever been able to do it before. And we do get the sequence of the monkey growing wings, which looks cool as shit. I think the winged monkeys look really cool, even though they're all CGI. I think they look really sick.
This sequence is the discomfort I felt in this sequence for that monkey, like writhing in pain as these like wings burst from its fucking back, is the discomfort James Cameron wanted me to feel when that whale was being hunted.
Right. No, because I mean, you could, I guess one of it's just like you could see the monkey's like, human face, like, contort in pain and agony, where the whale was just kind of like, oh, sad groan, which is, whatever. We don't. That's a
beautiful whale impression.
Thank you. Anyway, we get this sequence where they're like, "Oh man, Elphaba, you're so cool at magic." And then she like runs out in horror to see like the entire like phalanx of guards has grown wings, and they're all just like writhing in pain. And she's like, "Man, that sucks. I don't like this." And then they they make a slight mistake, which also happens in the play, so it's fine. But they're like, "Oh man, these are gonna make great spies." and then Elphaba's like, hey, what? And Morrible and the wizard are like, "Oh yeah, just because we need spies they're more like scouts if you think about it," which is a very good Jeff Goldblum addition, I think. Just like, "Oh no, let's use a different, less loaded term." And then that's the point where they get the confrontation, and Elphaba's like, "Oh, you're a fucking fake. You can't read this at all." And he's like, "Yeah, that's why I need you." She takes the Grimoire. They, activate the city guard, and they're like, "Everybody go get her. She's stolen something from us. She's the enemy." There's an incredible shot of Michelle Yeoh, like, kind of like turning around with all these winged monkeys flying into the air, and it looks like the most anime shit I've ever seen. It's so good. It's the only time I felt like anything in the Wizard of Oz canon was cool. But like, yeah, and at this point, she's like, "Hey," or she, meaning Morrible, says to Glinda, like, "Hey, if you want to actually be useful and get my attention, you'll stop her." And then we get Defying Gravity.
Do we? We don't yet. We go through a long ass hallway chase sequence with these monkeys slamming into these windows. Then we get into the room where we start with the I hope you're happy now portion of Defying Gravity. Then we go up the stairs, and then we stop that for the first time for Glinda at this point to get Elphaba a cloak because she's shivering. Or no, that's not the first time that stops. Oh, the guards are chasing them, and they're about to break down the door. Then Elphaba invites she opens the grimoire and tries to cast the wing spell on herself. For some reason it doesn't work, and then they watch the broom float up. Then we get the cloak as Elphaba is inviting Glinda to come with her. Unlimited together will be unlimited, that verse. It ends without Glinda giving a clear answer, going to get the cloak. Then we get into the next little bit, which is supposed to transition us into the "So If You Care to Find Me." Right. The guards are finally breaking down the door. Elphaba goes from one platform to another and then launches herself off the side of the tower, falls almost all the way to the bottom, makes peace with her inner child. At the last second, her flying broom comes together. She flies up. She does the big climactic, "So if you care to find me, look to the western sky." Then we stop the number a fourth fucking time to watch Madame Morrible go on her magic fucking intercom to tell everybody that Elphaba is evil. We get close-ups on Nessa Rose, close-ups on Fiero, just to remind us that they're there. And a moment between Morrible and Glinda, and then we also get a close-up on Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, he's there. Then we finally get "And Nobody in All of Oz," which is the end of that fucking thing, and then Cynthia gets to do her version of the fucking riff, which she also did in the Target ad, which was one of the 4 Wicked-themed advertisements I watched in the theater waiting to see Wicked. And then the movie's over. Aaron, do you know how bad I had to piss?
I seriously considered, I was like, I can't miss Defying Gravity, but this balloon sequence is going on so long. I need to piss again.
About the balloon.
Yeah, no, like I had the same issue with you, and I had also peed previously during the movie. So
I did not. I brought a bottle of water and I didn't piss the entire movie, and I'm just sitting there. My bladder hurts so bad, and I'm like, I cannot get up to piss in the second stop of Defying Gravity, but I also like don't know when this fucking song is gonna end, and I'm gonna piss myself in this theater next to this girl who's sobbing. I'm like. What am I doing?
Okay, so Entertainment Weekly did an interview with John Chu about why they expanded Defying Gravity. So here's I'm just going to read some quotes. If you just played it as the ending number, and we had versions of that in storyboard form and rehearsal form, it felt like a shortcut. It felt too easy. Okay, well, let's carry on and see what else he says. There are moments when she's tying the cape and everything, and you're trying to keep the intensity of the end of a movie. She's saying, "Come with me," and Glinda has to say, "I can't," but she can't say those words. That takes time to express. You can't rush that. So we tried to give it as much room to do that. Every beat felt necessary. Emotionally, you have to fulfill the promise of what you want for Elphaba. Every turn was a trap that I knew our audience could despise us for. If I'm not on a close-up on those specific words, at the moment they want to see it, I'm screwed. If I break it up so much that they cannot recognize it, that's a problem.
And guess
what you John.
Did?
Yeah, John.
Just stay in the close-ups, my guy. Just stay in the close-ups. You could have, the whole characters in a musical sing when they can't speak anymore. That is a emotional intensity so pervasive that you have to have the added emotional layers of song for the audience to understand how deep the feeling that they're feeling is. And if you're stopping the fucking song, then we have a problem. And you wouldn't have this much weight on this song if it wasn't the climax of your film, John Chu, but if it was instead of the fucking Act 1 closer as it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
In all of musical theater, I think there is maybe one song that I like, or like not even song that I like, but like moment of like pure vocal, power that I think is better than this, and that's the I want to say High C and Phantom at the climax of Phantom of the Opera, the titular song, then Defying Gravity. And I think I just Defying Gravity stands out to me because it is such like a resonant and powerful moment of a performer just like absolutely punching through like an incredibly this like power ballad. It is it completely shatters the rest of the musical in my opinion because it is so good that like it kind of devastates anything that comes after it. And I think you're completely right. Like by adding those pauses and drawing it out, it does we're already suffering from the fact that like we know that this isn't a live performance, so like there's none of that tension that like they could fuck it up, which makes musical theater so powerful when you see it live. But like when you combine that with the fact that like they continue to take their own knees out from under them, it really does lose that like absolute build up and smash at the very end of the song, which I'm really frustrated that they messed that part up, because I was on board for 90% of this until there, and I was like, man, I really wish you had stuck the landing.
Yeah, and this like not sticking the landing really exacerbated the other instances of them stopping the songs for me. And so in that very same Cats video essay that I sent you by Sideways, he talks about like when you have a song, a fast-paced or a very intense song that you want to like maintain the intensity throughout its runtime, what you do is you add a contrast, you slow down or make it quieter, and Defying Gravity already does that, right? It starts with that very intense, very punchy, I hope you're happy, that argument between Elphaba and Glinda. It then slows down into like Elphaba's proposal, right, and saying like, hey, come with us. That unlimited riff, which you and I discovered this week, is the same notes as Dorothy's.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow, yeah.
Except just rearranged in a different rhythm, which is really clever and really cool of Stephen Schwartz. And then you get your quietest part in the I hope you're happy now that you're choosing this, you too. And they start building back up with I hope it brings you bliss. They have their big duo moment, and then it builds into Elphaba's big final solo with that orchestral swell and the drums and it's really big and loud, and she gets to like fully vocal powerhouse like through all the way from and if you care to find me, look to the western sky. This is her big declaration for the first time as the quote Wicked Witch of the West. And then we bring it back down again for just a second for the really intense nobody in all of Oz and the Wizard that the Wizard was is as she slows down is ever gonna bring me down, punches right back up into that vocal intensity, and she gets to do her big final riff while the choir's underneath her. Like, the song already structurally does what John Chu was trying to do with the editing, but the editing makes it worse. It's just so frustrating, and I was so on board with the rest of the movie, and I think if I go to see, when I go to see Wicked Part 2, because I will go see Wicked Part 2, it's good enough that I will go back in the theaters and see it. Aaron, I swear on my fucking life, if they pause at any point during No Good Deed, I am going to take my Diet Coke and dump it over my fucking head, and I am going to melt into my Regal recliner fucking Wicked Witch style. And you will never hear from me again.
I'll send a note to Mr. Chu. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I'm like, I think everything else about that sequence is pretty good. Like, I love the the intimacy of Glinda like tying the cape around Elphaba's neck, and like they have this like kind of like emotional, like they're both kind of looking at each other like, man, I guess we're fucking enemies now, this sucks like moment. I love seeing that. I love the bit where when she's flying around like a fucking Super Saiyan. Like, it does look kind of cool, even if I think it's a little goofy. I love the bit where her cloak like billows out from behind her to take up the entire screen. That part is sick. It's just
Speaking of anime, did you feel like her cloak got longer throughout the sequence?
It kind of did. Like, I mean, that's what it comes to the end. Yeah, like it is growing with it to the point where it is, eating the screen. It
was a little distracting, but like kind of cool.
I thought it was fun. It's fine. Yeah, and then she, turns into a jet plane, flies off to the western sky, and that's Wicked Part 1. To be continued.
Yeah. Again, B, but yeah. just the structure. It's really just structure.
I mean, listen, endings are hard. You really do have to stick the ending, though.
Yeah.
Any other big thoughts?
I had a question for, did you and I, or did you ever watch Legally Blonde?
Believe we've done an episode on it, haven't we?
Did you pick up on the fact, and I could be wrong here, but did you pick up on the fact that Glinda's power pose is very much a reference to Elle Woods?
I didn't, but that's very good.
I rewatched a little bit of it, and it's I'm trying to think if it was Elle Woods in the musical or something, but like I very distinctly in my brain have an image of Elle Woods standing like that, and I thought that was very, very fun. I also really liked that they added more of the like Oz words, like braverism and stuff.
Yes, I think that part is like, I both hate it and love it. I think it is so annoying, but that's kind of the point, is to be like, oh, I'm going to look so scandalocious at the party tonight. And it's like, one, shut the fuck up, but also like, yeah, sure, why not?
I want to add scandalocious to my fucking vocabulary.
No one can stop you. No one will stop you.
The costumes look great. The sets look great. There's John Chu, there's time. There's time in the edit bay. There's time. Cut the pauses, and then you will have an A+ fucking musical adaptation in your pocket.
Yeah. So the good news is that even though we're a little bit disappointed by Wicked, we have received a sponsor. Somebody has graciously sent me a green letter that said, hey, we heard that you and your co-host Leyla are just really great, and
correct.
we want you to bankroll the next movie musical. So we're giving you a blank check. What do you want to do? So yeah, Leyla, what are we gonna do with this next movie musical? What do you have any thoughts? I can give my pitch if you want to brainstorm.
Yeah, I have a thought. I just want to know if it's the thought I want to go with. So yeah, please pitch me
Sure.
yours.
Have you seen another musical by Stephen Schwartz that's Pippin?
I have not seen Pippin.
Pippin is a weird musical from the 70s about like the son of Charlemagne, who like has to go on like a journey where he like learns what life is about. And I think it would be very funny to do that like as filmed by like the A24 freaks, and like make it like in the style of The Green Knight. There's a lot of like, Bob Fosse was like famously the choreographer for it, and did like a lot of like wild dance sequences. I highly recommend Pippin to anybody who is like a musical theater dork. I think you'll really, really like it. I would love to get like a weird like kind of halfway between musical theater and horror version of Pippin. I think that would be really fun.
I agree. Actually, you said Bob Fosse, and in that Architectural Digest thing, like the inspiration for those barrel bookshelves in Dancing Through Life was very much Bob Fosse in the rotating room. So this movie was very much made by musical theater dorks, and I think that our A24 Pippin, we could also get some A24 perverts who I'm sure are also musical theater dorks.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We could totally get them to do this. So here the ting. One of my choices would have been Matilda the musical, but Matilda the musical actually already has a very competent, very good adaptation by Netflix.
Oh.
I can't remember if we did it on this show or not. Apparently not, judging by your reaction. But we should. It's actually really, really, really good. I think it is the best musical adaptation for film that I've ever seen.
Wow.
I do. Listen, I'm scrolling through my Broadway playlist trying to find an alternate option, but the heart wants what it wants. My heart wants to do Heathers.
Oh.
I love Heathers the musical so fucking much. And I think if the perverts at A24 want to get with me and do this dark comedy about teen suicide, I think we could have some fun.
I think that would be interesting. I think you'd have to get like a certain person who saw the same vision as you, but I think you could get there.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of things you could do in like the campy slasher filmmaking style. Just a lot of like, I want to see a lot of corn syrup blood, I want to see like, yeah. I want 80s big hair camp. There's so much you could do. And I would love to see it on the big screen, especially because, like, I think this movie, as we said in the beginning, Wicked, does a really good job of, like, using close-ups, which are a tool of filmmaking. I think you could do a lot of close-ups on, like, whoever plays Veronica, and having that like really conflicted, like, oh, I want to be popular, but also like, and I want to fuck JD really really bad, but like. It's ending in death. I think there's a I don't the audience is 10 people. It really is, but I want to make, I think we should be making things for 10 people. So.
Yes, absolutely. This podcast is for 10 people, so
Sure.
yeah.
And after this episode, 5.
To be fair. Yeah, well, Leyla, when we are not pitching avant-garde ahead of their time, brilliant concepts, where can we be found on the internet?
Find me at LEYLSES on Blue Sky and Tumblr. I am vibing. What about you?
I am also on Blue Sky and Tumblr. Blue Sky at AA Voigt, Tumblr at Monster Factory Fanfic, also at YouTube at AA Voigt, where my latest video essay is about what I like to call suffering games, including such titles as Click Holding, Journey of a Thousand Zips, Feedback, and Tom Walker the Comedian's GTA playthroughs. If you are at all a pervert who likes to watch people do repetitive things over and over again for no reason, highly recommend you check out that video. Our theme song is Obsolete by Keshco from the album Filmmaker's Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshco.bandcamp.com. Leyla, It's time to get out of here. What do you say we hit the road?
Well, we can't all come and go by bubble.
We'll see you all next time.